वाक्यं सचराचरम् तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। सर्वश्रुतिशिरोरत्न समुद्भासितमूर्तये आत्मज्ञानाग्निदानेन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। चैतन्यः शाश्वतः शान्तो व्योमातीतो निरञ्जनः बिन्दुनादकलातीत तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ज्ञानशक्तिसमारूढस्तत्त्वमाला विभूषित भुक्तिमुक्तिप्रदाता च तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। अनेकजन्मसम्प्राप्ता कर्मेन्धनविदाहिने आत्मज्ञानाग्निदानेन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। शोषणं भवसिन्धोश्च प्रापणं सारसम्पदः यस्य पादोदकं सम्यक् तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः।
So welcome everyone, and thank you for the adaptation to the change in time today. And I would also like to maybe ask later if Sunday 6 p.m. could be our regular time, but maybe then if others join, I can ask later. So we will start. So I think we had finished page 11, this paragraph starting with finding your own way. And we have to start today section 3 of the book, Integral Yoga and the Body. So would anyone want to begin the process? Anyone wants to read it out loud for all of us?
Yes, I'll read it out.
Okay, sure. Yes.
So, I have never had any hesitation in the use of a spiritual force for all legitimate purposes, including the maintenance of health and physical life in myself and in others. I put a value on the body first as an instrument, dharma sadhana, or more fully as a center of manifested personality in action, a basis of spiritual life and activity as of all life and activity upon the earth. But also because for me, the body as well as the mind and life is part of the divine whole, a form of the spirit, and therefore not to be disregarded or despised as something incurably gross and incapable of spiritual realization or of spiritual use. Matter itself is secretly a form of the spirit and has to reveal itself as that, can be made to wake to consciousness and evolve and realize the spirit, the divine within it. In my view, the body as well as the mind and life have to be spiritualized, or one may say divinized, so as to be a fit instrument and receptacle for the realization of the divine.
So thank you, Birenji. Any reflections coming to anyone?
So one way of looking at it is that identify both the body and the mind as one, and make sure that both are spiritually inclined. That's what I would make out of this paragraph, because we tend to view body and mind as separate generally.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So starting with the first lines, I have never had any hesitation in the use of a spiritual force for all legitimate purposes, including the maintenance of health and physical life in myself and others. So I think, as Birenji was sharing, usually in the traditional many yoga systems, it has been considered that body is not capable of moving towards light, and that's where we come towards when we think about these asceticism or leaving the worldly affairs and finding solace in a liberation of a different kind of the spirit's liberation, leaving the body as it is. But as we know that with integral yoga of Mother Sri Aurobindo, they take the body along. And as Sri Aurobindo reveals later, matter itself is secretly a form of the spirit and has to reveal itself as that. So anything that appears dark, dull, full of tamas, inertia, can't be uplifted. In other words, it can be uplifted. That's our very task as human beings. So in the first few lines, for example, whenever we fall ill, and also for our day-to-day experiences, material experiences, many of us have this tendency of thinking like, oh, why should I bother the divine for this? Have you come across that thought, that, oh, this is so trivial, why should I bother the divine for this? So Sri Aurobindo is sharing here that I have never had any hesitation in the use of a spiritual force for all legitimate purposes, including the maintenance of health and physical life. So, in other words, we can say that we can bother the divine for every little damn thing in our life. And that's what has to be done, this conscious consecration of each and every aspect of our life. So body, our tendencies, our patterns, the way we think, the way we feel suffocated, the way we feel uplifted, everything, each aspect of our life, the way we earn, material life, the way we earn, the way we have a living, our job, our practical, taking care of children, our house, our property, and this, the body is also one of the house that we use, being here in mortal existence. So Sri Aurobindo is, in other words, to me it appears that we don't have to make that distinction that, oh, divine, only when I'm doing the temple ritual in the morning or in the evening, that's the time for the divine, and rest everything can be undivine. No, there is no need for that separation. And even for all the legitimate purposes, as he says, including the maintenance of health, the divine power can be called, the spiritual force can be called, must be called. And that's how we have purification in our being. When we bring everything that we are going through in front of this higher light, which is always available, but we never call upon it. We think that, oh, why should I bother about, the divine, about this little thing? This I can do by myself. So I think that why not, when the divine is here all the time, waiting, for a call. So why not ask consciously that, okay, I'm maybe finding a book today, I need assistance. You know that I need to find this book, and if you deem fit, please help. So, in each and every practical matter of our life, including material body existence, including physical challenges, it's possible to invoke the divine, to call upon the higher spiritual force. So, that's what comes to me when I go through these first few lines. Yeah. And on the later lines, I think Virenji was commenting that body as well as the mind and life. So mind, thinking, thoughts, all that we can conceive through intellect. Life would be our prana, our energy, emotions, feelings, all that, ambition, desires, that, and the body, mind, life, and the body, they are all instruments equally of the divine, and have to be in each instrument has to be invoked the divine presence. And what we mean by invoking divine presence is constant purification, recognizing what is ugly and then constantly letting the ugliness go and the beauty come. So not only in mind and life, thought and feelings, but also at the bodily level. So yeah, we can take more reflections if you have on this part, or anything else if anything is coming. And we know, whenever we are standing in front of a temple or the small puja ghar that we may have at home, for 2 minutes when we are lighting up the diya, or lighting up an incense sticks, most of the times, if not all, we try to be sincere. If you have seen, like we are putting our head down in the gurdwara or a temple, and those of us who sincerely feel like inclination to do this, we see that even for a moment we are very sincere, like there is a purity in the being. If you know what I'm saying, we all have glimpsed that purity. But the moment I'm out of that temple, the purity disappears, and all the ugliness comes back again, and I'm very happy living in that ugliness. So the idea is to uh, constantly have this purification in our being, which is not only there when we are standing in front of a deity or a temple, but all the time. Each aspect of my being I'm putting in front of this light, like higher light, which tells me whether it is to be kept or not to be kept, following the dictate or not following the dictate, is it pure, is it impure. And that light of consciousness I have, with which I will judge and discern, that all of us have.
I think this word legitimate is something that one needs to reflect on more because, like you were sharing, how we say that I should ask for this, or I shouldn't ask for this, or I shouldn't bother the divine for something. So I think this legitimate, that is it. I don't know, like it's what's the, I mean, what's the meaning? Like it's legal, right? It's like whether it's worthy. So that thing probably we have our own definitions, and that's what stops us in calling for the higher. I feel like this is an interesting choice of word here. Yeah, just that. Thank you.
Yeah, and totally resonate that it is our definitions of this is legitimate and this is not legitimate. And if the purpose of my being now, all of us who are here today, and If the purpose now is that I want to make my life more and more purified, then each and every aspect of life becomes legitimate. It's only in our, when we have many many limiting beliefs, this is legitimate, this is not legitimate, this is trivial, this is more important, here I can call upon the divine, but here no need, this can remain dark. So again, we are so limited by our definitions of legitimate. And the I think the more we become sincere on the path, I think, again, my reflection is that each aspect of my being is legitimate. Why not? Why I have to keep all the rest of the aspects which are not so called worthy in my own definitions in darkness? Then my purpose itself is defeated. That the purification is not achieved in each part of the being, each aspect of my being. And not only in myself, he also says in others also. And this is also, I feel, very important, because many a times we are thinking that, oh, how can I help the other person here, for example. And in outward means, maybe you are not able to help that much, because we all have egos and ego clash with each other. And even if you may have a good intention, the person may be not ready to take it in. So what to do there? And the best form, which comes actually to us the last, when the doctors say, okay, now everything we have done, last we can do is prayers. So I think this should be the first, that we begin a surgery or an operation or a treatment, we begin it with a prayer. So so if I want to have some invocation for myself and also others, that may they have more light, more grace and grounding and progress. And this can be done anywhere, even the person doesn't need to be aware that this is being done. And pure intentions benefit everyone, including myself. When I am praying for someone, it benefits and purifies my own being. If you have ever tried, I'm sure all of us have tried doing that, that whenever we really really truly want benefit of others and we pray without them knowing, it purifies our being, along with all the good that it may bring to the other. So I'm assuming there is nothing, and if there is anything, you will unmute. So I'm moving forward. Matter itself is secretly a form of the spirit, and has to reveal itself as that, as the spirit, which is full of light, knowledge. At the moment, the matter is sunk deep in darkness of unconsciousness, inconscient, dumbness, mechanical patterns. But that is only at the moment. That's not its destiny. The destiny, if even if we say that there is everywhere, there is nothing but the divine. And since the divine is all knowing, so even in a grain of sand, that matter can arise to a full blown consciousness. Sooner or later, it will happen. It is bound to happen. It's just a matter of time. Matter itself is secretly a form of the spirit, and has to reveal itself as that, can be made to wake to consciousness and evolve and realize the spirit. And this is what all of us have to do, the divine within it. All of us, we all have so much darkness, unconsciousness, subconscious, all that is which is not known. Basically, we are ignorant of what is subconscious, mean that which is below my level of consciousness. Unconscious is even much below. Inconscient would be, totally out of sight. And slowly, greater in degrees, we become conscious of the subconscious, which have become our mechanical patterns. So the more purity I want in my being, I become conscious. Oh, this is how I operate. This is how, if somebody says this thing, this word, how it triggers me and how I react. So these are the subconscious patterns when we don't just want to react, but we want to truly respond. A light in us wakes up. It was always there, but it was not, it was like sleeping. So a light in us wakes up and it says, okay, looks around what is going on and becomes conscious of all the subconsciousness and then unconsciousness and deeper. So that's what we, each one of us, have to do. So one can say that that is the purpose of human existence. The purpose of human existence is not buying property, settling down, having kids, getting married, having 90% in examinations, having a white collar, I don't know, gray collar job. That's not the purpose. That's a side product, if it may happen or not happen. But the main purpose of our life here, according to Mother Sri Aurobindo, is evolution of our consciousness, growth of our consciousness, which means constant shedding of these layers of ignorance that are covering like a blanket. Blankets over blankets are there. It's not that we have to achieve something from out there. We just have to become conscious that, oh, this is a blanket, let it go. Oh, this is a blanket, let it go. So like that, realization after realization, blankets after blankets. That's why we feel so suffocated. One is wondering, that it's so hot because we are covered with layers of blankets, and we don't know. We think that we are a limited individuality, but we are not, and that suffocates us. So we have to become conscious and slowly let go of these layers and blankets of ignorance. So that is what has to be done even in the cells of the body, physical consciousness. Now, slowly, as the book is moving ahead, he'll take up, we'll also get passages now exactly hitting on how the illnesses happen and how diseases happen and how what is the cause and cure and all that. So slowly we are moving towards that. Matter itself is secretly a form of the spirit and has to reveal itself as that. Now, usually what happens whenever we are having an illness, we are so much in a hurry. Like, jaldi se theek ho jaye, something or other should happen and I should get rid of this. So we don't care to experiment. So this matter, which is hiding spirit, I can experience it in each aspect of my life. A headache, a stomach ache, a headache caused because of, say, wrong eating habits, like I give a big gap and I get a migraine, or exposure to too much sun. Now that has become my pattern. Now, if I want to evoke and invoke spirit and call it out for help, you come forward. It's possible that even we can break these patterns, that I am empty stomach and yet the headache doesn't happen, or I have eaten something and yet the stomach ache doesn't happen. So that's a radical shift that happens from a sense mind to a higher uplifted state. But we don't have time. We are so busy and occupied in our mundane, routine patterns. I don't know where they are taking us. They must be taking us somewhere, I'm sure. But we don't care to experiment. We're always in a rush, 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 rush. So if a headache comes, I pop a pill. Why? Because I don't have any time to experiment. And those of us who may have experimented, it's not anything new that we are sharing today, they will see that they get remarkable results. So this waking up of consciousness in matter to evolve and realize the spirit, the divine within it. Yeah. Anything here? Anyone?
Yeah, Monica, I
Yes.
just want a small clarification here. See, you said if we have any physical pain, headache or something, so how we have to handle it? Yeah, I didn't understand what you were, saying. So can you please explain it a bit? Instead of taking a pill,
Yes.
so you sit with it.
Yeah,
And
many possibilities. So let us hear from others also. I'm sure people have experimented with this.
yeah.
So there would be many possibilities. Yeah, would anyone want to share your experiments with headache, stomach ache? all the aches in our being. Yes, Priyanka.
I can breathe. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Priyanka. You muted yourself. Yeah.
Aru wanted to say something? I heard
No,
her.
no, I just said yes, Priyanka. So go
Okay,
ahead.
so sorry. So, so I didn't hear what you said, Monica, because I was lost in a thought. I was just absorbed in thinking about something. So please, can you just say what you said first so that I am able to connect with that. So
Okay, so Sardaji was sharing.
I heard that. Yeah.
Okay, you have that. So
Huh.
before that, I was sharing that when these minor incidents happen, so-called minor, like a headache out of empty stomach, you didn't eat for a long time and you have a headache, migraine, or you go out in the sun and a migraine happens. This is a pattern we see with many of us, right?
Mhm.
So I am saying that since we don't care to experiment with these
Mhm.
patterns and
Mhm.
change them radically, because we are
Mhm.
always in a hurry, some or the other kind of hurry. So
Mhm.
all that I want is this headache should be cured, and I pop a pill or whatever, I sleep, for some time, and the headache takes care of itself after some time, either with a pill or maybe with a sleep or anything. But I'm not able to break the pattern, which is whenever I go out in the sun, I get a migraine.
Yeah.
I was sharing that if we consciously work upon these patterns that are there, it is a possibility that I go out in the sun, I remain empty stomach, and yet the headache doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So if anyone would like to share, as Shardaji was questioning.
So I totally agree with you. And a very recent incident about a week back or so, uh, I woke up with a stiff pain in my neck, a stiff neck, and normally the tendency is to pop a pill because through the day you're working, you would want to be pain free so as to focus on work and all. So it wasn't, the pain was so much, and I carried on, and I thought maybe tonight if I sleep, maybe I'll sleep better and the pain will go away. It wasn't a pain even, it was just a bit of a discomfort. And the next morning when I woke up, this one was a little bit more. It was, and I thought that after my breakfast, I'm going to be taking a muscle relaxant. But as my morning session starts with, as usual, it's been years of practice of doing meditation, like my sadhana. So I was just sitting and consciously, working on my own body, trying to focus my energy, uh, you know, on that part of the body, trying to talk to it, uh, direct my energies. And later, I was also chanting a mantra, and it so happened that I chanted loud because mantra science in itself, mantra chanting in itself is a science. Because when you are chanting, when you are, that sound that creates a vibration, I feel a little bit aware of, we're all made up of cells, cells are made up of atoms, atoms are made up of electrons, protons, neutrons, and electrons are all the time moving. So our cells are also, if they're made up of atoms, then they are also constantly in some kind of vibration. So they are vibrating, and though we don't feel that vibration within our body, we all are in a certain vibration, that energy field, that bioelectric energy, that life force, whatever we call that, prana shakti, whatever we call it, and that even the science has it has been documented. Now it has been photographed, and all that we call aura, that we have been talking about it for ages. Now it is scientifically proven also. So every cell in our body, it is vibrating at a certain frequency, and for us to be in good health, that vibrational frequency has to be at a certain vibration. Whenever there is an ailment or a discomfort in any part of the body, if there is a way to measure, then it's so said that the vibrational frequency reduces. So keeping that in mind, whenever I'm chanting a mantra, I am trying to raise the frequency consciously of that part of my body. And that's what I did. I've been doing this for many years, but that particular day, I don't know how it just revealed itself while I had closed my eyes, that I must direct my whole awareness to my neck. And while I'm chanting, I must, somehow, make it feel as if my chants are appearing through that part of my cells of that part of the body are chanting with me. So that was just a conscious thought in the mind. And I was doing that. And when it got over, I was feeling relatively better. Just a relatively better. It hadn't gone, but there was some sort of a difference. And I thought that after my breakfast, I'll take my normal muscle relaxant. And just 2-3 hours passed, and I didn't know. Suddenly, after 2-3 hours, I was doing something. with ease. And I realized, oh, I was supposed to take the pill. And the pain wasn't there. And this I have been kind of talking about in the recent few days to people I've been kind of meeting, that how consciously, because I also many a time just, because I want quick result, and we all want, who wants to be in pain? And what is the best way to, relieve yourself of pain is to take a medicine. And it's fine. There's nothing wrong also in that. But as you have said, that yes, there's so much of power within us, only that we haven't, many of us don't know about it. Here we all of us are aware of it. Now, being aware and also being patient with it, and to work with that awareness, to sometimes try and work. But that requires a practice, because it won't happen when you are in pain and we've not been in the practice of doing that meditation or whatever we all do. And if we are not in sync with that energy, then to be in the moment of pain, to be able to direct that would be a bit difficult and maybe disappointing. But with practice, yes, this is possible. So this is one incident that happened with me. And I, being a doctor, I have studied this medical science, and I so much believe in it, uh, with all due respect to the science that is my education. But spiritual science, when I studied that science, and what can I study? You have to realize that it's nothing. I mean, of course, but first you have to study, and then you have to, practice within yourself. It's all integral yoga. So the connect of these two I find very beautiful and very empowering. And I feel that if at all we can integrate the two, it will be so beautiful, While medicines are there, everything is there, medical science is there, and it's all there to help us. But there is so much within us that, no doctor ever tells, because we don't know, frankly. Most of us don't know. But a little bit of this spiritual journey has created this kind of little bit understanding, I would say. And this is very beautiful. This is very empowering for me. So I'm all for it, Monica. So thank you so much for bringing this up.
Bravo! More power to each one of us.
Yeah. It's very nice to hear from a doctor. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Priyanka. Yeah, very, very nice. Yeah. Thank you, Monica, for for this question, so that each one of us will have different experience. Yes. Thank you so much. Yes. It's like auto suggestion, right?
Absolutely. And Mother also talks about auto suggestion, that it works beautifully. And we are actually auto suggesting all the while. Mostly we are auto suggesting all about negativity.
Yes.
Now we have to just take the charge of our being. Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. And I would invite more reflections, just like Priyanka shared her experience. So please share all the experiments that we have been doing. If anyone is coming to you, any particular one is coming to you.
Monica, once, I wanted to share my father's experience here.
Sure. Yeah.
He was eating, he was 80, 88, 89 at that year, at that time. So he was eating his lunch. Suddenly his hand, he couldn't uh, eat with his hand. He felt very sad. What is this? While eating itself, he was very orthodox. He will not use spoon and all. And while eating, he will not talk. He will eat only food. And my mother was seeing this, and she felt something is wrong. And somehow, he was managing, and he completed eating. And after some time, he went to take a rest. And in the evening, he came and he told my mother, see, while eating, my hand was paralyzed. I couldn't move my hand. But if I tell you, then I need to talk while eating. So that was his principle. He never used to talk. So one is that. Second, my mother will get worried. What is this? Because they were alone in our village. So she will be worried what to do. So he started calling the mother. Mother, my hand should be all right. My hand should be all right. So he kept on repeating this. So somehow he finished eating. By the time he came, in the evening, his hand was all right. That time he said, I could see the mother's energy was passing to my right hand. I could completely feel that. So the whole of his, right hand was fully charged with the mother's energy. So by evening, he was all right. During the lunchtime itself, he could somehow manage. He was saying through mother's help only. So at the age of 89, so age does not matter. Only the thing which is matters is our faith.
Absolutely, totally resonate. What a beautiful example. And one thing when you were sharing, it's coming to me that, why I'm not able to ask divine help for, we were reading earlier that we don't invoke the divine spiritual force, as Sri Aurobindo was talking earlier. I think there is also, as we all start with impurities, we all start with uglinesses in us, our selfish demands, our selfish needs. We all start with that. So when I'm actually invoking the divine, somehow I feel responsible. And it is not possible that in parallel, I am invoking the divine presence, and then I am going to now use it for my selfish manipulation or some hidden agenda, which is very, like ugly in character. That these two don't go together. So I think one of the reasons which will stop me invoking the divine presence is also this impurity in the being, while paradoxically, that's the very place where I need the divine force. When I see an impurity, that I say, I need help. There is this impurity in my being and I need greater light. But most of the times we are defending our impurities. We are on the side of impurity, that I want to just go ahead with it. And that's why I don't allow myself to invoke divine presence or grace or Ma's work, name, as you said. While when I am invoking mother's name, somehow I become responsible for this life. That on one hand, I am invoking mother's name. I am asking her to flow in my, whatever the hand, and make it more functional and make me for more functional. And on the other hand, if I use that energy for a wrong purpose, for my selfish and hidden little manipulations, something doesn't fit right. So I think this invocation also serves like a dual-edged sword, that it also allows me to purify my being in the process. And if I was earlier going to follow the dictate of some selfish, desire, want, something which is not really, doesn't make a very nice taste in the being, then after invocation, I would not feel like following that dictate. So this parallel purification also happens, and more one can offer one's life to the higher, each aspect of one's life to the higher, and not to the ego consciousness. So when you were sharing the example of your father invoking mother's name, so that's what came to me, that then I become responsible for my actions, my word, my speech, and which is a good thing. We must become responsible.
Beautiful. Yeah. This side is also very, very important.
Yeah.
Yes. It's not curing, is not at physical level. It has to cure everything, our impurities inside. Yeah, beautiful thought, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you. Anamika ji, you want to share?
Yeah, there have been quite a couple of times when I have healed myself, and I will narrate of a very like one incident wherein I was able to heal my daughter. She had some growth in her leg somewhere at one place, and it was there for quite some time. I think it was there for a year. It was a black growth, so and it was paining also. So she would just complain every time. I used to ignore initially. Then I took her to the doctor, and the doctor said that it needs to be operated. It has to be removed. It is at a place where it is touching some nerves also. So I got a little worried. I thought she has to be operated. So less age. She was just 10 or 11 years old. So I came home, and then I usually do my meditation sadhana in the mornings. So I told her, you just sit with me in front of me, and I will try to just send the Shakti to that place. And I just focused on what I have learned in my meditation, how to heal yourself and all with some mantra. So I was just giving her, sending her that energy on that place, that particular space, and she was just sitting for 1 hour. I continuously meditated, and then I just did not even see what has happened. So I, for 2 3 days, I did that. Initially, at 2 3 days, I did that with her. She's sitting in front of me, and then after 3 days, I saw that it has reduced. The size was reduced to almost half in 3 days. And then in the morning, she had to go to school also. So she started going to school. So she was not there with me. She used to be in school, but still, I used to visualize her sitting in front of me, and I used to visualize that part of her body. And I used to just focus there, sending the Shakti on that place. So in 1 week or say 10 days, I just told her it was winter, so it was not visible all the time. Told her, just show me how it is now. Is it paining? She said, no, it's not paining. Then we both of us, even she was not aware that what has happened. Then we saw that it has completely vanished. It wasn't there at all. And I felt so happy that without getting her operated, uh, she was healed.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, very powerful. I think this is what is purity of intention, and I'm sure you must have experienced it while you were, having that
Yeah,
visualization that your own being gets purified when you are doing it for
yeah,
someone
yeah,
else.
yes.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Thank you, Monica.
So, would anyone want to share any more experience on the same, aligned with the same theme, what Sharda ji had asked? That how a radical shift in your consciousness led to something different than a usual pattern. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't know about radical shift, but I, if there's any discomfort or pain, if one can sit with it, like if I have, like at times I do pop a pill, and at times I just sit with it. Like, okay, I just feel the intensity and where it's happening. Just, okay, let me just see what is happening. Like, where is the pain? Okay. How much is it pain? Oh, wow, it's too much. Okay, okay. Just kind of just being aware of it. Like, I especially, get very severe cramps sometimes during when I'm down. And the different things work different times, but when the pain is really severe, when it feels that it will not go, and if you're just there with it, suddenly I don't know where it disappears. I mean, I don't, again, I'm saying I don't do it every time, because sometimes it's just whatever, and yet I have seen it again and again and again, that again how we talk about embracing something or giving something your attention. Like, it just, I don't know, sometimes it feels all it wants is just to be noticed. And one thing I had read somewhere, I don't know who, it was from, and it basically said that there are actually two things, that when you're experiencing pain, if you are just with the pain without any past or future, you know how our cycle started, oh my god, it's hurting again, it's why does it happen to me, I won't be able to take it, like as in, I think this was Alan Watts maybe, and he said that then that makes us weaker. But if you can just ask yourself, can I bear this right now? Can I be with this right now? 100%, he said the answer would be yes. This much I can tolerate. But when we bring in the past or, go to the future, that will it always happen? That makes us weaker. The other day, I read a study which said that there were some mice which the experiment person had, I don't know, had put in some water, jars of water. They had put in the mice. So I think after probably they said 19 minutes on average, the mice stopped trying to get out of the water because they realized they will not get out. But then they were quickly pulled out, they were dried and stuff. And after 5 hours, they were again put into the water. And after that, once when they realized that they were able to get out, they were rescued for 60 hours. They were able to struggle before they gave in. So just imagine 19 minutes to 60 hours. I mean, so much strength. I mean, it just shows that, right? That we have the strength, we choose not to use it, and we can use it if, yeah. And the one thing that I was initially sharing was that I had read that sometimes when something is paining, right, it's indicating something. Like you were sharing that, okay, if you don't eat regular meals, it hurts, right? Like some people get headaches. So if you could just go to the ache and just, the nerve, and just say that, okay, I know what you are trying to tell me. I have understood. I realize it's paining. I realize why. You can rest now. Like your message has been received. So this too, those small things again would come under, attention, awareness, acceptance. They really help. And overall, how you share, especially about the cancer, that as soon, when you got it, there was this thing in you that I have created this, right? There was no victim, there was no, oh my God, what's happening to me? Or there could be, and yet there was simultaneously this thing that I have created and I have to take care of it. So this I have seen across several, success stories, if I can use that word, that if we take responsibility in an honest way, that okay, it's here. Now what is it showing me and what do I do about it? Like it has a lot of potential for self-healing and the miracles that we call. So it's very simple, but yet because we are so used to creating dramas around things, we lose it. We lose it. Yeah. Thank you.
Uh, I just got reminded of this book called, most of you have read, must have read it, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And such a small book, but such a beautiful book about the power of mind. That, and it talks about the life in German concentration camps, and how just a small incident that when I read that book, that I just got reminded of right now, was that this person who is a doctor, is a psychiatrist. He has written this book. He was one of the survivors of the concentration camp, when the World War got over, and he was one of those very few people who still survived, and he later wrote this book. So he said that while they were all living in the concentration camp, people were dying, and they're losing hope. And suddenly they were so told that the world war would get over by Christmas. And many people suddenly, there was, because the hope was kindled, and they all felt that by then they would be free and they would be able to live the life or whatever. lot of people started living more happily, or whatever they were doing, there was more excitement, there was more life, whatever they could have. And when the Christmas day came, and they were all waiting that not today, probably, or tomorrow, it will be so declared that the world war is going to get over. And the next day, when they were disheartened that it hasn't got over, and many deaths happened within few days, or maybe say weeks, people died. And so that was the power of the mind, that how much within your own self we have the power within it, but how our hope is that fire, that it's fuel to the mind. So उस hope को कभी नहीं जाने देना है. That is a very strong empowering thing within us, that come what may, come what challenge, come what pain. And as Taru had said, that when you when you live with your pain, it's like acknowledging your own pain. तो जिस चीज को भी हम acknowledge करते हैं वो अच्छा ही हो जाता है. अपने बच्चे को भी जब हम प्यार करते हैं, जब हम उसको गोद में लेते हैं, जब हम उसको गले लगाते हैं, तो वो कितना खुश हो जाता है. एक अच्छा सा एक खुशी का माहौल क्रिएट हो जाता है, हमारे अंदर भी प्यूरिफिकेशन हो जाती है, that love. So the same thing, if we can direct that kind of acknowledgement to our own pain, be conscious of that part of the body which is aching, which means that cell in our body is like a little kid, which is kind of also asking for that attention. And instead of, if in our mind, if we are getting stressed out, or whatever thoughts are coming in our mind, or often it is a negative thought, often it is fear, often it is we suffer, so many negative things come to our mind and we don't want it. So all these thoughts are not just in the mind, they are also being directed to that part of the body, which in the process is losing its power. And then the pain becomes bigger. So while yes, when we have pain, we have all the means to settle it. But if we can also if sometimes see that we acknowledge that pain, and as Taru has very beautifully said, that when you try and live with that pain, there are moments when that pain finds the power to, I think it is also finding a release. So you are able to let it go. So somehow we are holding it by, by clinging on to it, by saying मुझे पेन हो रहा है, या पेन होगा, या तब भी हुआ था और अब भी होगा, और अब जब होगा तो इतना दर्द होगा, पता नहीं मैं कैसे बर्दाश्त करूंगी. तो पेन को और पेनफुल बना दिया. तो पेन के साथ अगर हम एक्नॉलेज करके और उसके साथ उसको ताकत दें, उसको to let go, maybe just a thought. Not, it is easy to say but difficult to do, but we can always try it. Yeah.
Thank you, Priyanka, and thank you, Taru, for sharing that. Yes. So these are a few, again, as we were discussing, there are infinite possibilities, just like the divine is infinite. To depending upon the nature of person, there would be infinite number of variations of these tools that have been discussed, and they're all valid, because whatever works, they're all valid, and to each his own, as they say. That we have to find, as we were reading in the earlier paragraph, that finding your own way, that each person in integral yoga, he finds his own way. So that's why there is no one formula in integral yoga, how this is to be done, that is to be done. And there are all possibilities there, invoking mother's name, bringing all the awareness, embracing with the energy of mindfulness, what Priyanka was sharing, again validating and having that hope and will that yes, I can transcend it, because without will nothing happens. So we will to be weak, we are will. We will to be strong, we can be strong. What am I willing right now? So being aware of that. And then what comes to me, one of the infinite possibilities, mother shares about calling peace. So absolutely stilling all the vibrations of the body. This also according to mother and according to some of the people who experiment with it, uh, personally, I feel that it benefits again a lot to each aspect in our life. As Taru was sharing, that it would not maybe work every time, but at times this works. So at times when I am maybe I'm able to chant mother's name with some background mother's name is going on, that works. At times bringing myself in the here and now and embracing and acknowledging, yes, I know you are here, I see you, and just being there with it, nothing doing, just being there. So that would work. And at times when we are in that capacity, calling absolute stillness and peace. For many of us may have experimented with that already. It's there with mother's words already. Nothing new that I'm sharing. And that really settles down all the lower vibrations that create that intensity of the disease, that create that illness or ache or whatever. So focusing our attention, concentration on that particular part, again, you are using many things at once. You are being aware of that pain. You are validating also, in one sense, all the gathered consciousness is in gathered on that part, if it's a part. And then you call absolute stillness in that part of the being. Now that part would not just mean physical, it would also mean absolutely stilling the thoughts, which would cover again what we were sharing, in alignment with that, and absolute stillness in the feelings. So not becoming agitated, what Taru was sharing, that not going into the past, future, just being fully here with whatever is the state factually in reality, and then bringing the higher force, what Sri Aurobindo was sharing earlier, bringing down that solid piece, which I think somebody was sharing, maybe Alokda or maybe Sri Aurobindo himself, that it comes like a solid block of like ice. If you have seen that solid rectangular blocks of ice in India, we have seen it several places. It's like that solid block of peace that comes and settles in that space wherever it is required, or all the whole being. But again, before that, the premise is I must want it. So the will, the want has to be there to experiment with it, to transcend it, and uh, yeah, to I don't know, to do something different than what we usually do with these things when we are too much rushed up. So again, and having said that, there would be again several infinite more possibilities. So we have discussed only 3-4 ways here, which are again very comprehensive already, but each person would devise his own way of shifting the consciousness from the past, present worries and future anxieties to completely the present moment, and invoking something higher, which has so far been inaccessible, and that has the power. So yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just two small things. One is like, if you form a relationship with it, right? Then it feels that, the other also responds, like your pain also responds. Like I was telling you about my down pain. Like, sometimes when there is just too much going on, I can just say, maybe this time you can be more kinder, and I don't get pain. Like it's it's pretty, like, it's hard to convey it in words, but it's pretty, I mean, it's there, it responds. Like it's a live energy. It's not like it's a blind thing that's just happening to you. That can, and one thing, you in the beginning you had talked about triggers, that if we could look at our triggers, we can see very clearly what upsets us and what doesn't, and what makes us angry and stuff. But the usual response that I've seen is that that person knows that this triggers me. Why can't he do better? Or why, the child knows that every time he says this, I get angry. No, he should know better, right? So matlab, what is my role? Like, I know my triggers and I'm shouting at somebody saying that, don't you know this annoys me? So again, if I just say to myself, don't you know that it annoys you? Can you not do anything about you getting annoyed? Because I see that in and around me a lot that he knew and still he did it. So when you hear somebody else say that sounds pretty silly, but then I see myself doing the same, that he's insensitive, she's unkind, she's unthoughtful. But then what is my role? What am I here to do? Just the petty things that I do and just ignore this. And so yeah, so just when the trigger thing you said, I wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes. So just wanting to maybe take up the last lines in these in this paragraph. In my view, the body as well as the mind and life have to be spiritualized, or one may say divinized, so as to be a fit instrument and receptacle for the realization of the divine. So this is again, as with words of Mother Sri Aurobindo, we time to time get reminders of what is my work here, what am I doing here. So this is what is my work here. All of us, including the elitist, non-elitist, the regular, ordinary person walking on the street, me, myself, my relatives, this belongs to, it's the common thread, that common employment that we have, which we often forget, that body, mind, life have to be spiritualized, divinized, so as to be a fit instrument and receptacle for the realization of the divine. So I'm going to just read out in this alignment a few lines from Veda of the Body. I was sharing, I think I had shared earlier with all of you the link to this book on internet also. So this is written by Dr. Alok Pandey, and I think it's really beautifully written. So I'm just going to read few lines which I thought were in alignment with what we were discussing today. So a gymnast or athlete is simply using this intrinsic capacity, this capacity which we were all talking of, that we don't often use it, but we can, of the body to change and adapt from within. Through practice and training, sometimes out of sheer necessity, as in wars and catastrophes. And I think one of the necessities what Taru was sharing, that you are overwhelmed with too much of work and you are connecting with the body, that could you please be a little kinder this time, that even that would be one situation. So through practice, training, sometimes out of sheer necessity, as in wars and catastrophes, at other times simply by a suspension of mental conditioning, as in catatonic states, one can make the body do many strange things, such as survive without food or even water, or enough air for long periods. So all that I think is absolutely needed for me, without this I can't survive, or without a pillow, without a bed, without 3 meals in a day, without water I can't survive, we can. Now, if need arises, will is there, we can. This is done simply through an intrinsic motivation and will. It has also been seen, scientifically demonstrated, that by practice, one can even bring under voluntary control those functions traditionally regarded as autonomous, like, heart rate, the secretion of gastric juices, the rhythm of the brain, blood pressure, and what else, all that which is considered it is out of my control. I can stop my breath for some time, but not my heartbeat. So there have been again many experiments which show that we can alter this. So there are recorded instances that a yogi can entirely stop his heartbeat and breath and yet continue to talk, live, and act as any other normal being. And then he talks about that how we are different, and there is, in machines 2 plus 2 is 4, but in us 2 plus 2 is not 4. It can be 5, it can be 3. So we don't work in a logical way. The divine doesn't work by a formula. And that's why scientists so far have not been able to create a seed out of nothing. Like these four elements I have, and I am able to create a seed like it exists in nature. No scientist has been able to do that. No scientist has been able to do or to create a human body the way it is, the suppleness, the consciousness. I can create a robot, definitely, by mimicking human body, but I'm not able to create a human body, even though I see that, okay, these are the elements that are there. So there is something secret, something so called hidden, not yet hidden so much, which is the secret behind this power that we have of adaptability, of having this will and growth, capacity of growth. So then he shares that we cannot conceive how a random association of amino acids can, by a freak accident, evolve and create a man out of mud and clay. Now, how did it happen? From stone, from animal, how did man come to being? How? Because even now, scientists have the raw material, amino acids, fire element, earth element, water element, but they can't create a man out of that, right? They can do cloning, but they can't really make it out of scratch. So what's there? What's missing? He says our 50 years attempts at creating life in this way out of sheer matter have failed. For there is something else to it. There is a greater mystery that follows all phenomena. Phenomena would be all that is limited. It starts and it ends. So there is a greater mystery behind all phenomena. My breathing, mystery behind my breathing. Digestion, mystery behind my digestion. How you look at the atom. Again, it's not all that I see. There is something more that I can see. There is a hidden marvel that reductionism cannot analyze. There is a secret that escapes the confines of the scientist's lab, but is found in the lab of nature. This secret is consciousness. And this is the inner reserve, he says, that is locked in the cells, and which, whenever we will, we can use this reserve of consciousness, which I may not have used in 50 years of my life. So I'm not going further because this already is enough empowering, that this secret is consciousness, and we all have the ability to tap into that consciousness to greater, yet greater capacity, and there is no end to that inner reserve. And this would be again one example, that is again anecdote that is coming. There was a grandfather, true story of a grandfather who was on the wheelchair for a very long time somewhere in US, and there they have these hurricanes and tornadoes, so they have to move to the basement when these warnings are issued. So he had two grandchildren at home and the grandfather who is physically challenged. He is not gotten up from the wheelchair for many years. Now there is a will in him suddenly that arises, that now this warning is there, my kids are sleeping, grandchildren are sleeping, and what do I do, because I want to save them? How do I take them down? And out of sheer will, that I want this purified intention, he gets up from the wheelchair and carries both the little kids down in the basement, which he has not done since many years. Now, this may appear as one in an off incident, like, okay, it happens 1 in million, but I'm not sure whether it happens 1 in million. It's only that it gets documented maybe 1 in million or 1 in 100. But things are happening, yet they are not coming in the newspaper because we want something else on the newspaper. That comes, we read that with our tea. And all that, this greater happening which is happening, remains out of our sight just because it doesn't get in the social media. It does not mean that it's not happening. And we all, as we were sharing, these little miracles that we can't ignore, we must not ignore. That can be our life. Our life doesn't have to be a boring day. It can be a very full of a marvel a day, full of experiments with our consciousness in each aspect of our being, mind, emotions, body. And we don't need to even, we are having a session today, but many of us would be out there who are doing these experiments without even the need of sharing. They are not sharing, and yet we are all yogis in our whole capacities. So gives us a lot of promise and hope, as Priyanka was sharing earlier. One becomes full of this promise that when one looks at one's own experiments, it gives us a greater joy to, and self motivation to get up every day and to involve ourselves in these unending experiments that we can do on ourselves and others. Yeah, so any reflections, anyone?
Monica, can you please share the link of the Veda of the body? I can't see it in my
Okay, yes, I can share it again. Yes, it's available online. Yeah. So I think again an ongoing journey, and more we see that we have the capacity, the more we stabilize our stance, if I can say, as this consciousness which lives through the body, and it is not limited in the body. We I think we limit ourselves too much when we say that I end here and you start there. And we have seen in our experiences that what is distant healing? It's acting out of consciousness, that I make a change here and look what happens there. So again, a proof, if one wants proof, then there are, in quantum physics there are experiments on these particles which are miles apart physically, and yet if you change one particle here, the other gets affected. How is it happening? If we were just bodies, how can it happen? So even as Sri Aurobindo talks in Life Divine, that whether you start from spirit or you start from matter, destiny is only one, that you will discover the divine everywhere. We will discover this consciousness in operation everywhere. So it's beautiful that we are, even in scientific approach, we are actually moving more and more towards consciousness approaches. And as many of us are working, many doctors are working with consciousness based paradigm. It may appear like a big word, it's nothing. Consciousness based approach to treating illnesses, that the moment you take you take a stance as I am this consciousness which lives in this body, rather than identifying more and more with the surface happenings, you become empowered. There is hope, there is will which is generated within, just as a byproduct of taking stance as consciousness. So I think all of us, this is our ongoing journey, that more and more we have to take our throne back. We have to reclaim this kingdom within, so that each cell becomes divine. Not only thought becomes divine, feelings become purer and purer, intentions become purer, ugliness disappears, we move towards Satyam, Sivam, Sundaram, beauty, harmony, truth, they all go together. And even physical cells have more and more capacity to be more plastic, supple, expansive, and not only the mind, intellect, and feelings, but even the physical cells. And we have a certain mastery. So all the examples that you all were sharing, what is that if not mastery? What Sarada ji shared, Priyanka was sharing, Taru was sharing, Anamika was sharing, this is a mastery. You are exerting control over outer situations. So such is our power, enormous power, which we, since we are engaged so where, everywhere we have our foot, in the day-to-day affairs. If we give time to these experiments, then we see that we are infinite. There is no end to these empowerments. And one with the Veda of the body, body. In the beginning, Dr. Alok Pandey shares two verses or two lines from Sri Aurobindo. One was very resonating, which I am going to share. The spirit within us is the only all efficient doctor, and submission of the body to it, which in other words we call surrender to the higher power, and submission to the body to it, the one true panacea. Panacea would be one cure for everything. So, what is the one cure for everything? The spirit within us is the only all efficient doctor, and submission of the body to it, the one true panacea. And then one can say again, since it's not limited to this much, that why do masters, enlightened masters, get illnesses? And then we have again more to explore there. The journey doesn't end here, so again telling us that there is further and further that we can explore, and that's what brings each day alive, that we have so much to explore, unfathomable depths within us and outside to explore. So good to be alive. Yeah. Okay, so any last comments before we end, anyone? Okay, so I'm assuming there is nothing at the moment. And I think just for clarity's sake, we'll continue with 7 p.m. as the standard time of these sessions. Today, I thought, since I had something on my mind to accomplish, I thought if possible, and I'm glad that many of us could join, we could do it early. But I know that many of us are from different time zones, so every time it would not be possible. So we'll keep it 7 for the rest of the thing. And if there is any change, we'll communicate on WhatsApp. Thank you today for adapting to the new time for today itself. Yeah. And happy practice to everyone, and may all of us and everywhere out there, may all of us be truly well and truly happy. Thank you. So taking a moment just to send out this connection. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.